Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Rapid Recap here at Inside Nebraska. With me as always is Tim Verghese. I'm Zack Carpenter at Memorial Stadium at the Hawks Championship Center. Earlier today, Nebraska held its 7th practice of the spring season in 2024, their second open viewing window. And honestly, Tim was talking about it off camera. It was about a 25-30 minute open viewing period. The first 12 or so minutes was a 11-on-11 scrimmage. Of a 2-minute drill is what they were working on. It had referees, had the whole shebang. Kaelin had a series, Raiola had a series. It was honestly, I thought it was the best open viewing period we've had since Matt Rhule took over. Whether it's the fall or the spring, I think that was the most that we've seen so far throughout our time here. But what was the biggest takeaway from the open viewing period?
Yeah, obviously the quarterbacks, getting to get an eye on them, that was big, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. The real eye catcher for me today was just we've heard about the receivers Nebraska's had. Obviously we have an understanding of, this new receiver room and the guys that are in the building right now. But today we really got a feel for what these guys look like on the field. Ja'Cory Barney caught your attention, a couple of really big catches, just moving around, just like a guy that's tracking the ball a little better and moving around a little better than you expect for a true freshman. The two transfers, Jamal Banks had a couple countested catches, looks the part, obviously physically, and he's looks to be a handful, like defensive backs trying to guard him. It's just been tough, for them to get a hand around him or, be able to bat that ball down from, getting around his big frame. Neor, probably the play of the day was a long catch from Kaelin early in practice, and right in the back corner of that end zone. And that was just him tracking the ball. A great throw from Danny, but that was just Neor using his length, tracking that ball and bringing it in bounds. So you're starting to see, what they have here. Jaden Doss, flashed a little bit today. You got to see, a little bit of Davon Hall. So just really looking at the receivers and getting a feel for who's in the building. One surprise, I would say, we've heard a lot about Demetrius Bell. Wasn't really an eye catcher today. Wasn't really a guy that we took note of. But that's a guy that's, at least behind the scenes still making noise.
Yeah, I actually didn't see Demetrius Bell wasn't on the field for the 2-minute drill. He didn't get any reps in. But yeah, the Neor catch, it was a Willie Mays style catch where it's completely tracking it over the shoulder, and Danny, like you said, Danny K placed that ball perfectly, lofted it up a touch into the back of the end zone, or not the back of the end zone, but into the end zone, and he caught it in stride. And that was the biggest takeaway, I think. I mean, it was a 15-play scrimmage between the two quarterbacks. Danny had 6 plays. It went down surgically, scored a touchdown in 6 plays, and Dylan had 9. We just published it on InsideNebraska.com. Encourage you guys to go check out the site where I did some over-analysis. It's like I know everyone at home is going to overanalyze every throw that Danny made, every throw that Dylan made, and the takeaway is going to be, well, Danny looked a lot sharper than Dylan, and that was true. He did, but the over-analysis is going to be out there. It already is out there once you see the videos. So I figured I'd take it out of the hands of you guys and overanalyze for you. It's a mixed bag in my eyes because it's one drill of 2 minutes, and it was illuminating. It was exciting because it was loud. It was energetic. It was fast paced as you would expect a 2-minute drill to be. But the mixture of the offensive lines for both units, the playmakers at running back, receiver for both units, the defensive players that they're competing against. It's this Nebraska Spring League where the teams are all mixed up, so it's like, what takeaways are you going to get? You have to take it with a little grain of salt every time. Dylan's offensive line, for instance, I think had 2 true freshmen and a walk-on. Joey Mancino playing center, which I think I don't know how extensive his experience is at center. There are a couple off-mark throws, several off-mark throws from Dylan where he was launching it downfield where he had a free rusher in his face and he was off the mark to Jaden Doss on a wheel at the sideline. It's like, well, yeah, his internal clock got sped up because he had an unabated rusher right coming at him. Another one, I think one of the takeaways from Dylan's session is Jalen Lloyd. There are back-to-back plays where, again, mixed bag. Dylan did a great job, a tremendous job of in general of throwing with anticipation, because Jalen Lloyd, you see him streaking across the middle here. And before Jalen even got into his break, Dylan's already winding up to throw, and then he crosses over Sincere Safiula, his coverage, and through a bump coverage by DeAndre Barnes. Before he even makes his break, Dylan's is winding up to throw, and then he still throws it a little bit behind Jalen. Jalen snags it and picks up some yak yards, but you still got to throw a tick sooner, I think, throw with a little bit better anticipation, and then the next throw would have been a sack if the quarterbacks were live. And you see Dylan sort of just like moving his feet, and he pats the ball a couple times. I think he wanted to toss it, he wanted to fire it out there sooner. I think Jalen took a hair too long to get out of his route and into the soft spot of the defensive coverage. And with things like that, I do think it's a simple matter of that quarterback receiver chemistry and timing that this spring is for. That's the whole purpose of spring, is to get that timing down. I don't know what you noticed from the quarterbacks, whether it's Dylan or Danny or both.
Yeah, I mean, Danny looked good. I think a context that's important to remember with all of this is, yes, on top of, the rotating personnel these guys are working with, like you were saying with the offensive line that Dylan was working with, and even though on the receiver side, Dylan had more rotations at receiver than Danny did. Danny was pretty much working with the same 3-4 receivers in the reps that we saw, and Dylan, they were throwing in, they were throwing Bonner in there, they were throwing Dawson there, they were throwing in guys
It was Alex Bullock, they had Barrett Liebentritt, Ishmael Smith-Flores, along with getting Fedoni, Borkacher in for a couple reps. Like you said, Jalen Lloyd for a couple reps. Ja'Cory Barney got 1 or 2. So it was definitely more
rotating cast. And you also have to remember, again, with these practices, with the amount of reps these guys are taking, we saw 15 reps, and these guys have played hundreds at this point. We were talking like maybe close to 1,000 through 6-7 practices at this point, because they're averaging they're talking about averaging 100, 150 reps per practice. It's a lot happening. So. These guys are getting a lot of reps in, and so what we saw today was just one small glimpse. Again, there's that additional pressure of, hey, the media's here. Yeah. Hey, everyone's watching on the sideline. Hey, all of this is being filmed and it's going to be updated before you guys even get back to the locker room or even get changed. So there's that additional pressure on it. Again, we can look into what we saw today. I think more than anything, this isn't a negative on Dylan. This is more so just, hey, we've said Danny Kaelin's not going to be denied in this QB battle. He showed it today. He showed exactly why, he's not going to be denied in this QB battle. They're going to have to force him, or, basically Dylan's going to have to outwork him and earn that spot.
And I know what you're going to be saying. You're thinking at home. It's going to be a lot the same way I am when I hear things like this. Oh, you guys are spin zoning it. You guys are just saying this now because you've been saying, or at least if you're yelling at me, that's fine. Dylan Raiola is going to be the next no doubt starter at Nebraska. I still think he is going to be the no doubt starter at Nebraska. And I guarantee there are some, if not many of you at home saying, oh, now you're just twisting it to make excuses for him. It's like, no, I don't think he looked especially sharp today. I also think context matters. Danny did look really sharp today. I think context matters. He was a 6-play drive for Danny. I think we should spotlight him. 75 yards where he hit, we already said the end of the play, the highlight play for the offense during that scrimmage time was the hookup with Nayor for 25, 30-yard touchdown. And he finished 3 for 3 on the drive, and there were 3 runs that pretty much 2 of them went for no gain, another went for like 5 yards. So Danny was responsible for almost every yard and the touchdown throw. And the first completion was to Barney up the right sideline right here. On another, where he hit him over the shoulder. There's a back shoulder that I think Barney probably the proper way would have been to catch it like this instead of like this. Either way, it was a perfectly placed ball for 35 plus yards, and then Danny, the next throw, hits Jamal Banks, like you said, over the middle, who beat Tommy Hill on coverage. And you're right about Banks. He's a big mother effer. He pretty much jumped up and pretty much bear hugged the ball. And it's like, all right, if you throw it up to him, more often than not, he's going to come down.
And Tommy played the ball well. Tommy played the receiver well. Like the arms coming around to try. It's just Banks is so big. That's something you're going to see this year. Like I mean, I've said it a couple times on here now. Banks isn't this like you pretty much saw in this one drive what these two transfer receivers bring. Banks is the chain mover. You know, those 10 to 15 yard type throws, those crossing routes, those digs, those curls, whatever. Like that's where he's going to make his bread and butter. That's where he's going to be a reliable target. Downfield, you know, especially once we get into the red zone, you're trying to go for the end zone. That's going to be Naor. That's where you're going to see him, and we saw that on full display today.
Yeah, I honestly thought I was filming each play of the 2-minute drill for a highlight video, and I thought it was Jalen Lloyd. Like Naor was on the other side, number 18. Jalen Lloyd's number 19, and so from my vantage point, I thought for a second it was Jalen Lloyd until I rewatched the tape. It was obviously Naor, but. Naor looks sharp. Jalen Lloyd looks, I mean, he looks fast, man.
Like
he
that,
looks
yeah,
fast.
I think that's a guy that, you know, I mean, even you think back to when Nebraska took him out of West Side in the first place, and it was like, hey, this is track star, you know, doesn't have a whole lot of production, but we're going to figure this out. And, you know, his freshman year going the way it did, seeing some flashes, and now what's happening now, I mean, he's the guy, like, more than any other receiver, I think, that gets mentioned by the quarterbacks, that mentions by the offense. Like, just he's the game breaker. He's, you know, if Nebraska wants to achieve what they want to achieve, you know, he's got to be that game breaker type. And man, he's living up to it. He's full go. Just really impressed, even at his slight frame, just how fast and physical he's moving around right now.
And I think going back to the Dylan Raiola with the timing connection, I think it's a product of like, oh shit, like. Jalen's fast, like maybe just a tick. Need to get the ball out of your hand a tick faster, but I think it's also he exploded on that route like across the middle. Like that's what he does, and it's like okay, you got to get used to that, which is a good problem to have.
Yep.
Rather have that than not. But I mean Jalen's one of those guys who is going to wind up having a hype train around him. I think coming into spring, I think anticipated that. I think coming out of spring, that's what we're going to wind up seeing because. He's a home run threat. I know we talked about the receivers a lot today and last rapid recap, but it is again. I think it's a really good mixture, really unique, interesting mixture of you got possession receivers, you got chain movers like you said, and Jamal Banks, maybe a Ja'Cory Barney, and some of those tight ends like Fedoni and Borg.
Yeah,
and you have the home run threat. You have Jalen Lloyd, Jaden Doss, I think could be, and Isaiah Naor.
Yeah, and real quick on Fedoni too, you know, he had a pretty early in practice, had a nice little catch and run, was tough to bring down, kind of, you know, they've talked about, you know, this potentially being a bit of a breakout year for him, and man, he's full go, he's fully healthy, moving with a little more juice than I saw, at least, you know, from what I was last year, watching on screen last year, looked like he's moving around with a little more juice this year, a little more physicality, kind of almost like 100% full go through these reps, and you know that he seems fully comfortable in the playbook, and he's talked about it himself. But it seems like he's moving around like he's completely comfortable and really confident.
Yeah, Fedoni's a guy I keep forgetting about. I keep forgetting about 5-star tight end, borderline 5-star tight end, number 1 in the country. It's like you forget about him obviously because of the injuries, and then you think back to last year. It's like he was Heinrich Harburg's most reliable target. He had a touchdown catch in like 3 straight games or 3 of 4. And last year, I think, was that bounce back year, foundational setting year. After the injuries, you get himself fully healthy. He's participating in dunk contests, scaring the hell out of everybody watching. It's like get him to the fall, man, get him to the fall. He's here now though, and if he can build on the foundation of last year, could he have a breakout year in 2024? Again, another interesting wrinkle, another dynamic to this passing game. But another guy who had his breakout last year was Isaac Gifford, and he's back. I mean, last year going into the season, Matt Rule called him a multi-year NFL guy, like a no-doubter.
Coop said similar things today. Just talked about, hey, this is a guy that, like, you know, one of the best players in the country, and feels the nation's going to wake up on him this year. So they're seeing something in practice that, you know, we've seen it on the field. We've seen him be an impact player. There's clearly something going on in practice that we're just not, you know, we haven't seen just yet.
Which is probably there. I mean, it's just we're just not here for it. And I don't know, Isaac Gifford and this defense, like, I feel like we keep focusing on the offense, and for good reason, because I think there's a lot more mysteries and questions centered around the quarterback, receivers, like, et cetera. But his defense is back. It's full of bunch of dudes on that defense, and Isaac Gifford's one of them. Tommy Hill could be one of them. Yeah, MJ Sherman could be one of them. But last thing to hit on real quick was about the defense, and Isaac Gifford obviously has one safety spot locked down for sure. Mentioned Tommy Hill as a corner. That number 2 corner spot's still up for grabs. I think you saw Mario Buford out here.
One name real quick one name real quick to mention there. You know, this was also, you know, we saw him the first practice visibility going with the DBs, but we really focused on him today. Man, Bly Hill looks really good. That's a guy that, you know, every single bit of 6'3", maybe even taller, man. Like I was pretty much eyeballing him. I'm, you know, like 5'9", 5'10"-ish. And I'm eyeballing him, and I'm just like, I've seen 6'3" before. This is bigger than, he's like 6'3.5", 6'4", a very, very large corner.
Yeah, you stand over Evan Cooper, and it's like, okay, that like you see the size and athleticism, the length up close. It's like, okay, yeah, I could see him. It all obviously depends on technique. Are you good? Are you a measurables guy? Are you a testing numbers guy? Or do you have the technique to be able to play? Do you have the physicality to be able to play? And we'll see. I'm not going to lie, I've not had eyes on Bly Hill at all, other than walking by and seeing him next to Evan Cooper, like I just said. But those right now, obviously Tommy Hill at one corner, maybe Bly Hill at the other, maybe one of those younger guys, because last tidbit was Malcolm Hartzog. I talked about him last week, where it looked like a potential permanent position switch from corner to safety could be happening, and it's looking like that's in place. We keep talking about Hartzog, like last spring and last fall, we talked about, safety corner. So we're back again for a third time, third go around around the sun, where safety or corner. But Cooper mentioned today, or he flat out said today, that Malcolm's focused on safety right now, and with potential to go back to corner.
Yep, and you know, with these guys, we've talked about this off camera, and you know, with this DB room, Coop's talked about, you know, cross-training all of these guys, making sure the safeties are getting corner reps, corners are getting safety reps, so they all understand where everybody is on the field, what their responsibilities are. It helps them develop, and it also helps the staff, you know, kind of figure out who's best in what spot. You know, a guy that his whole high school career is playing corner, suddenly, you know, works at safety, all of a sudden he moves a lot better now that he's got a lot of space to run around with. You know, on the flip side, you know, a safety that, you know, you're not really sure, hey, how does this guy work in coverage? You get him in some corner reps, all of a sudden you're like, hey, this guy's a little more fluid than we thought, flipping his hips, you know, dropping into coverage, you know, playing man, like he's more comfortable there. So you're going to see a lot of moving around, and also you're going to see a lot of body. You saw it last year, you're going to see it again this year. You're just going to see a lot of rotation in the DBs. Like we'll harp on this now because it's spring, on, you know, who's going to be the starter, who's going to be, you know, the safety or the corner. But you're going to see these guys line up everywhere. I mean, we saw Dwight Boodle at nickel today. We saw Dwight, you know, we saw Sincere out at corner. We saw all these different guys all over the place. And, you know, like I fully expect Malcolm's going to be safety sometimes, outside corner sometimes, nickel sometimes. He's going to be all over the place.
That's the thing, is like, okay, does it really matter? Well, no, but it's April 9th, so we have to, I mean, hey, sometimes you guys will have takes like, oh, media just needs something to talk about. Sometimes you're on the money. Sometimes you are. Sometimes you're right.
We just need things to talk about. Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're right. I mean, we need an angle there, so there it is. But no, I think that's all for a day. I know you had some recruiting updates, but if you go to InsideNebraska.com,
those will be up tonight regardless. So, you know, I'm not going to put it on video right now. Those will be up on the site tonight. So you'll be sure to check that out.
Yeah, InsideNebraska.com for all the latest on Nebraska recruiting with Tim, all the latest on Nebraska spring ball and the transfer portal of men's basketball, baseball coverage. All at InsideNebraska.com. Encourage you guys to check that out. Encourage you guys to like this video, subscribe to the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel so you can get all these analysis videos, all of our practice highlights, and our press conference footage dropped directly into your feed, so you can get them right away. You don't have to wait for us after practice an hour, 2, 3 hours later to come and analyze it or overanalyze it, like I said at the beginning. But that's going to do it for us. For Tim Verghese, I'm Zack Carpenter, and we'll catch you guys again next time.